We need to talk about something that happened less than an hour ago. And I want to be very clear with you right from the start. This is not about partisanship. This is about understanding what just occurred and why it matters far more than the headlines are telling you. Melania Trump has issued a public statement, and buried in that statement is language that legal observers are calling unprecedented for a former First Lady. She has invoked specific constitutional questions about Supreme Court conduct. And within minutes, there are reports that U.S. Marshals have been placed on alert at the Supreme Court building itself. Now, before we go any further, let me tell you what we know and what we don't know, because the difference between those two things is where the real story lives. What we know is this. Melania Trump released a written statement approximately 50 minutes ago through her attorney. The statement does not name specific justices, but it references what she calls a pattern of undisclosed communications between members of the judiciary and political operatives. She uses the word operatives deliberately. That is not casual language. That is the language of someone who has been briefed by lawyers who understand exactly what they are doing. The statement goes on to say that she has become aware of information that raises serious questions about judicial independence. And here is where it gets interesting. She does not say she has evidence. She says she has become aware of information. That phrasing is careful. It is precise. It suggests knowledge without making a claim that could be tested in court. Now, the Supreme Court has not responded, but what has happened is this. The Marshal of the Supreme Court, which is the position responsible for security and operational protocol at the court, has reportedly increased security measures. We are hearing from sources that additional deputy marshals have been assigned to the building. That is not normal. That does not happen because of a statement from a private citizen, even a former First Lady, unless there is concern about what might follow. So let me ask you this. Why would Melania Trump, who has been largely out of the public eye, who has not engaged in political combat the way others in her circle have, why would she step forward now with language this specific and this legally charged? There are three possibilities, and I want you to consider each one carefully. The first possibility is that this is coordinated, that she is acting in concert with allies of her husband, former President Trump, as part of a broader effort to delegitimize institutions that have ruled against him or that might rule against him in the future. If that is the case, this statement is a weapon. It is designed to sow doubt, to create a narrative of corruption, and to prepare the ground for rejecting any future rulings that do not go their way. The second possibility is that she is acting independently, that she has information, whether verified or not, that she believes to be true and that she feels compelled to bring forward. If that is the case, we have to ask what that information is, where it came from, and whether it can withstand scrutiny. The third possibility is the most dangerous, and it is this, that there is actual substance to what she is alleging, that there has been conduct by one or more justices that, if proven, would represent a genuine crisis of legitimacy for the Supreme Court. Now, I am not here to tell you which of these is true, but I am here to tell you that the response we are seeing suggests that people in positions of authority are taking this seriously, and that alone is significant. Let me take you back for a moment. The Supreme Court has been under intense scrutiny for years now. We have had revelations about undisclosed gifts to justices. We have had questions about recusal decisions. We have had public debates about the ethics code that the court finally adopted only after sustained pressure and which many legal experts say is inadequate because it has no enforcement mechanism. This is not a court that operates in a vacuum. It operates in a political environment. And whether we like it or not, the justices are human beings with relationships, with histories, with ideological commitments. The question has always been where the line is. Where does legitimate judicial philosophy end and improper influence begin? Melania Trump's statement does not give us answers, but it does something else. It forces the question into the open in a way that cannot be ignored, because she is not a political operative, she is not a member of Congress, she is not a lawyer bringing a case, she is someone with proximity to power, with access to information that most people do not have, and with a platform that guarantees attention. And that brings me to the Marshals. The U.S. Marshal Service is not the Secret Service. It does not protect people. It protects institutions. It protects the federal judiciary. When Marshals are activated, when security protocols are heightened, it is because there is a perceived threat to the functioning of the court itself. Now, what kind of threat are we talking about? Is it a physical threat? There is no indication of that. Is it a threat to the integrity of the court's proceedings? Possibly. Is it a response to the possibility of public unrest or protest? That is more likely, because what Melania Trump has done, intentionally or not, is create a moment where millions of people are now asking whether the Supreme Court can be trusted. And here's what you need to understand. Trust is the only thing the court has. It has no army. It has no budget that it controls independently. It has no enforcement power beyond what the executive branch chooses to give it. The court functions because people believe in its legitimacy. The moment that belief erodes, the court's power erodes with it. So when a former First Lady steps forward and says, in effect, that there are questions about whether justices have been acting properly, she is not just making an accusation. She is undermining the foundation on which the entire institution stands. Now, some of you are thinking, good, the court deserves scrutiny, and you are right, it does. But scrutiny and delegitimization are not the same thing. Scrutiny is asking hard questions and demanding accountability. Delegitimization is convincing people that the system itself is irredeemably corrupt and that its rulings can be disregarded. That distinction matters, because if we reach a point where a significant portion of the population simply does not accept the authority of the Supreme Court, we are in uncharted territory. We are in a constitutional crisis, and constitutional crises do not resolve themselves neatly. Let me give you an example. In the 1950s, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Education that school segregation was unconstitutional. Southern states resisted. Governors defied the ruling. President Eisenhower had to send federal troops to enforce it. That was a crisis, but it was a crisis where the legal question was clear and the moral question was even clearer. What we are facing now is different. We are facing a crisis not of a single ruling, but of legitimacy itself. And legitimacy, once lost, is extraordinarily difficult to restore. So what happens next? That is the question everyone is asking, and here is what I can tell you. First, the Supreme Court will likely issue some form of response. It may be a bland statement reaffirming its commitment to ethical standards. It may be silence, which would be its own kind of message. Or, and this is less likely but possible, it may release information that directly contradicts Melania Trump's claims. Second, members of Congress are going to weigh in. Democrats will likely call for investigations. Republicans will either defend the court or remain strategically silent. There will be hearings. There will be subpoenas. There will be a media circus. Third, and this is what concerns me most, there will be a fracturing of public perception. Some people will believe Melania Trump without evidence. Some people will dismiss her without consideration. And very few people will do the hard work of waiting for facts and evaluating them dispassionately. That fracturing is not an accident. It is the environment we have created, an environment where trust in institutions is at historic lows, where partisan identity shapes belief more than evidence does, where a single statement, carefully worded and strategically timed, can send shockwaves through the entire system. And let me be very clear about something. I do not know if Melania Trump's claims have merit. I do not know if there has been improper conduct by any justice. What I do know is that the way this is unfolding, the language being used, the responses we are seeing, all of it suggests that we are at the beginning of something, not the end. This is not a story that will be resolved in a news cycle. This is a story that will play out over weeks, possibly months, and the stakes could not be higher. Because if there is genuine misconduct, it must be exposed and addressed. The integrity of the court depends on it. But if this is a coordinated effort to weaken the court as an institution, to create doubt where none is warranted, then we are watching an attack on the rule of law itself. Either way, we are at a crossroads, and the path we take from here will define not just the Supreme Court, but the country. So here is what I want you to do. Watch carefully, read beyond the headlines, distinguish between what is claimed and what is proven, ask who benefits from this moment of uncertainty, and resist the urge to pick a side before you have the information you need to do so responsibly. Because this is bigger than politics. This is about whether we can maintain institutions that function independently of power and pressure, whether we can hold people accountable without destroying the systems that make accountability possible, whether we can navigate moments of crisis without losing sight of what we are supposed to be protecting. Melania Trump has dropped a bombshell, the Supreme Court is responding, and the Marshals are on alert. But the real question is not what happens in the next hour. It is what happens in the next chapter of this story, and that chapter is being written right now. stay informed, stay critical, and stay engaged, because what comes next will require all of us to be clear-eyed about what we are witnessing and what it means. This is not the end. This is the beginning.